Well, welcome everybody. I do believe that it is time for you to write your book. And so in order to think about that, I want to have today this pre-season conversation. By virtue of the fact that you're online, you probably have some idea who I am, or you've come across something that I might have posted on LinkedIn, or you may have read one of my books. Super quick bio of me. My name is Dan Rome. I come from sales and management consulting background, but more than anything else, I'm a kind of a person who likes to draw, and I like to clarify things through drawing them. And starting about 15 years ago, I started writing books on what I did. And that first book, which was called The Back of the Napkin, became kind of a breakout success and an international bestseller. And that allowed me to shift what my day job looked like to focus on what I was really passionate about, which is this idea of helping other people become their best possible thinker and communicator by often talking less and literally drawing more. And so over the last 15 years, I've ended up writing 6 books on this subject. The last one came out about a year ago. It was called The Pop-Up Pitch. And just by virtue of letting you know why these books have been important, and again, why I encourage you to want to work on your own, is they really, truly were life-changing in all the ways that you might think, from a business perspective, from a personal perspective. My professional life shifted, and we often hear this term these days about building a personal brand. We're going to talk about this more, but there is nothing that you can do to build a stronger, more resilient, more thoughtful personal brand than getting your book out there. And so we're going to talk about that. If you want to follow me at all, I'm on all the things. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook if you want to follow along, or fundamentally napkinacademy.com, which is what we're going to talk about quite a bit. Enough about me. I want to talk about you. Really the central idea to everything we're going to talk about for the next 25 minutes is the idea that I do believe that all you need to do is become the thought leader that you already are. I think it's time to step up and become the thought leader you already are. Go ahead and open up that curtain a little bit. You've got great ideas. We're going to talk about that. Every one of you has expertise in an area that is truly unique to you. Every one of you who's on this call with me right now is a thought leader in your own very, very unique way. If you want to follow along on LinkedIn over the last couple of days, I've been posting some thoughts on what it means to be a thought leader. And I think it's important just to take a second and say a thought leader isn't necessarily someone who's any smarter than anybody else or has any better thoughts than anybody else. And I've come to realize this over this last 15 years or so, that a thought leader is really someone who has an idea and has a perspective, but more than anything else, understands how to listen to others and find a way to take that unique perspective that you have and have it make sense to someone else who's a thought leader in their own right. And that's what it's really about. It's more of a humble practice than a practice of getting up on the stage and waving our arms and saying, I know this and I know that. It's really not about that. It's about taking what you already know, again, that unique life perspective that you already have, and sharing it with others in a way that is going to meet them where they are. And one of the best ways to do that is to write a book. In fact, I can think of no better way to do that than write a book. So here's the agenda for the next little bit of time that we have together. There's kind of 3 things we're going to cover. The first one is I did run an authorship survey last week, and we had hundreds of responses. And I want to share with you the responses because I find them quite fascinating. And I think many of you are people who did actually respond to that survey. And so I want you to see what the results were. Then I'm going to take a little bit of time and I'm going to talk about my own new book. Not because I really want to share with you my new book. I mean, of course I do. I'd be happy to talk to you all day about my new book. But the reason I want to talk about my new book is because I want to lead us into the idea that if I can do a new book, you can do a book. And that's what this session is really, really, really all about. Okay, so I want to do a quick poll right now. I'm going to pop up a poll that I put together, and I want all of you, just really quickly, it's only got 2 questions in it. I'm going to launch the following poll. Debbie, I'm still sharing my screen. Can you still see the poll even as I share my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, so what I want everybody to do is just go ahead. You should see a poll popping up on your screen. It's only 2 questions, and what I'd love you to do is just take a second and fill it in. So first question is, did you actually participate in last week's online survey? I mean, it's okay if you didn't. If you did, I just want to know so that you're a little bit aware of some of the questions we're going to talk about today. And if you didn't, that's perfectly fine. I'm just curious how many of you may have participated. And the second question right there in the poll is how many of you, I don't want to put it that way, not how many of you, I want to talk to you. Have you personally thought about writing a book? So just a couple of poll questions. Answers are coming in. This is great. Let's keep it going for about another 30 seconds. Really interesting. I'll share the results with you in a second, but as I'm watching them come in, it is a dead 50-50 between people who are on the webinar right now with us who did or did not fill out the survey already. So this will be interesting as you receive the results, especially if you didn't fill it in. And it looks like about 75% of people are thinking that, yeah, I want to write a book. 30% of you have already written a book. And then we've got a third question, of course, what might be helpful in writing your book? And let's take a look at what you've got. Okay, I see answers coming in. It looks like we've reached almost 100% of attendees having filled in their poll. We're at about 90% right now. Okay, here's what we're going to do because I want to keep things rolling. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results with you right now. So let's take a quick scan through what we see. Debbie, just checking in again. Can you see the poll results with me on screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So look what we've got. Did you participate in last week's authorship survey? 45% did not, 55% did. Okay, interesting. Looks like about 30% of you have written a book. Congratulations and kudos, that's fantastic. About 80% of you almost have thought about writing a book, and a handful of you not interested in writing a book. That's good to know too. And as we move into question number 3, what might be helpful in writing your book? Almost half of you are saying join an accountability tribe. We're going to talk about that. That's really interesting. Well, more than half, 60%, I'd like help in shaping the table of contents and the concept. Yeah, excellent. About a third of you want to find more time to dedicate to writing. Yeah, we do. 39% like to know a little bit more about the publishing process, and you can see it right there, about 39. I'd like to follow along with a successful author. Okay, so got a question already. What is the process involving publishing, editorials, editing? What a fantastic question. We're going to go over all those things. That's perfect, Anonymous. Thank you. I'm going to stop presenting the poll now, and I'm going to jump back over to my screen because I want to roll on with the results of the survey, because a lot of the things you just answered, we have the data from hundreds of people who did respond to the survey last week, and I want to share it with you because I learned some really interesting things. But before we start sharing survey results, I want to share with you a quick story. It's a story about me, but really, I think it's a story about all of us. And I call this story Why I Draw. When I was a boy, the world often confused me. I could not take in what other people around me seemed to easily take in. I don't think I was particularly special in one way or the other, but I know that a lot of things in the world confused me. In particular, I did struggle with words and with language, understanding it and organizing it and recalling it. Reading came a little bit difficult, with some difficulty. I figured it out after a little while, but often the things that the teacher was presenting or others didn't make sense in the same way that I think they thought that they made sense. Sometimes I'd listen in on conversations and was confused by what people were talking about. And so I began to draw stories, because what I found is that in order to better perceive what was going on, in order to help me better listen and certainly make sense of what I was hearing and seeing, I drew. And more than anything else, I drew these things to help me remember what it was that I was encoding and processing. And this idea of drawing worked really well for me all the way through school and through college until I entered the business world. And then I had kind of a sobering realization that the idea of drawing was not well accepted in the world of business. Drawing was not welcome here. Stories were considered immature. Clarification was often perceived in the big business meeting as patronizing. The person who said, wait, can I break it down into the simplest possible components, often was perceived as being patronizing of the other people that were talking in a lot of jargon and complexity. And so I'd come into these meetings and I'd hear about strategery and people talking about aligning and scaling and maximizing upside monetization and leveraging synergies on a go-forward basis. And I was like, what? What is that all about? What are you people really trying to say? So what I did is I looked for ways to put my drawing and stories into language that the business world would understand. And so for the second time, as I had done in school, I resorted to these drawings and these stories to survive in this wordy business world. And this time I used the language of business to actually explain the drawing. So I realized something. If I approached this idea of drawing ideas out and storytelling, if I approached it from a quantitative, data-driven, analytic process, I could get business people to listen. And so I drew things in books about how does it work? And then I drew things and showed research on why does this approach work? And this approach proved successful for the business world and for me. 6 books and some thousands of speeches later, hundreds of businesses now draw their stories too, whether they're small businesses that use visual communication to explain what they do, or really big businesses that use visual storytelling and communication to show how they impact the lives of sometimes millions, or startups. A lot of work with startups. I'm in San Francisco in the Bay Area, kind of in the capital of Silicon Valley, and a lot of startups explaining how do we do what we do. So this approach works because it recognizes what many business people forgot, which is that we people, fundamentally, all of us are visual. Now, we all take the world in differently. I get that. But most people are visual and everybody loves a story. So the degree to which we can share what we seek to tell through visuals and through stories, the more people are going to like it and make sense of it. So my work helps explain complex things by drawing them out, and I really love what I do. And I find if I get to share what I do with other people, invariably they end up loving this approach too, because when you draw stories, you are in effect translating other people's worlds into your own and your own world into a language that other people can see as well. It's pretty remarkable. But mostly in this act of writing, I want my work to do for others what it did for me. And that's why I went ahead and wrote my most recent book, which is called The Pop-Up Pitch. I wanted to be able to share visual storytelling with other people so that anyone else could be able to share their ideas, pitch them, sell them, share them, communicate them in a way that resonated with others. All right, so that's the little story I wanted to share with you. That's why I do what I do. Now, with that behind us, let's go ahead and quickly look at these authorship survey results. What happened is I asked 12 questions. And I want to show you what the answers were. Now, I know from our poll that we did a few minutes ago that about half of you have not seen these questions before. So I'm going to go through fairly quickly, but I think there's some really interesting insights into how many of us think about this idea of writing a book. My first question is, hey, I run this thing called the Napkin Academy, and I did want to just check to see what type of content is most valuable to people who are filling out the survey. And not surprisingly, you can correlate things here in color. The bulk of the Napkin Academy is lessons on using tools and templates for better or more effective visual storytelling. And it's not a surprise why that's what most people are expecting. But number 2, interestingly enough, was this idea on practical guidance on writing a book. Wow. Well, I like writing my books, and over the last 3 books I've written online chapter by chapter with members of the Napkin Academy. And it's really interesting to see that has been perceived as valuable by many people who were taking the survey. So that's interesting. Now let's talk about writing a book. Second question, have you ever thought about writing a book? Now look at this. I want you to take a moment and just kind of look at this pie chart. It's color coded again, but look at this big number. 40.77% said, I've thought about writing a book, but never believed I could. This 24%, I started a book but didn't finish. This red part, I completed a draft but never published it. Look at this, 66% of people have thought about writing a book, but either because they didn't believe they could do it or weren't able to finish or weren't able to publish, did not achieve that dream. 2/3, something is off. Writing a book is really important. It's really powerful. Yes, it's a lot of work. We're going to talk about that. But it totally can be done. So something is off. So let's talk about why might a book be valuable. Now, there's a lot of words on the page here right now. So I want you, as I'm just kind of walking through it, to just kind of glance at what we see. And again, the things that call out is whatever is this dark blue. The question was, Do you think that writing a book would be valuable for your career or your life? And you could pick as many as you wanted. And certainly look at these three right here. I believe that writing a book would have significant impact on my business and my ability to sell. Over half people thought so. I know that having a book with my name on it would be a remarkable way to establish and differentiate my personal brand. Yeah, 62%. And I suspect that writing a book would give me an energizing sense of capability and accomplishment. So that's really how I feel about myself. This idea of writing a book, if I could do that, I think I would find some really powerful footing under myself to do a lot of other things. I thought that was quite remarkable. How much do you agree with the following statements? Just scan over this, look at the statements down below and correlate them in your own mind's eye back to what you see in the color. The idea here was there was a scale from 0 to 5. How strongly do you agree with these particular statements? And as we go through them, I have a story that needs to be told. Yeah, okay, 4.3 out of 5. I have experienced something important that might help other people. Yeah, about 4.42 out of 5. I have unique insights that other people find valuable, right about the same. And here's the interesting one. I have been deeply moved, intrigued, and inspired by things I've read from other people. So I think in between those two, which is the highest ranking by a measurable amount, we believe that we have learned from the writing of others. And most of us have a belief that we have something worthy of sharing. I think if you put those two together, if we all know that reading from others helps us, what's stopping us from being the other that's doing some of the writing when we do have things to share? And I thought this was interesting. I know how to write a book. Right about halfway, people said, not so much. So one of the things, again, back to what we're seeing is this knowledge of how do I actually write a book? What kind of books do you like to read? Wow, far and away, 53%. Books to improve myself, business, self-help, inspiration, and psychology. So wannabe authors? That's where the market tends to be for the most part. And then I asked a couple of questions about how do we feel about our position in our present career professionally? And so you can read through these. It's kind of interesting. I was very pleased to see the skew towards the abundant mindset, the skew in these answers towards people who are happy with what they are doing in their position professionally. Well over half said, hey, I feel like it's spring. I'm in the season of growth and I see lots of opportunity ahead. That's fantastic. Oh, 17% said, I'm feeling kind of summer mellow. Things are okay and I'm fine with the path that I'm on. But I'm kind of curious about these two right here. So altogether, what about 26, 27%? Over a quarter of people said, I'm in the fall and it's cooling. I'm not sure things are working. I might need to try something else. I'm in winter chill. Things are in stagnation and I need a major change. So how delightful to see that most of us feel like we're in a good springtime season of our work. That's where we want to be. No matter where you fall on this, I think the idea of working on that book is going to be pretty important. And then career-wise, similar. About 62% of us are saying my career lights me up and I love what I do. I was surprised. I didn't know that there were that many of us who really love what we do. I think that's fantastic. I love what I do and I'm happy to hear when anybody else does. I think that is completely awesome. My job is fine is the dark blue. You know, I kind of like what I do and it pays the bills. That's good. But look at the red and look at the purple. I need a pivot. This job is sucking out my soul, about 14% of us. And then happily, I think in many ways, there's a good 8+% who gets our life purpose from something other than our work. So I thought this was interesting too. And then a little bit of, do you believe it's interesting to invest in yourself? Do you have some resources available to invest in your personal and professional growth? And what we see right here is the majority by a slight degree says, I'd like to dedicate about 30 minutes a day and the price of dinner and a movie. So this gives us a pretty good indication of what we believe we can invest in the growth of ourselves to continue to amplify our career or maybe make that change if we think we need it. Age group. I didn't know this. We are an older group. And there's a lot of things that go into a survey. Who received the survey? This was interesting to me. The bulk of us are in our 50s. The second biggest group is in our 40s. We've got a handful of people in their 30s. We've got some, bless us, look at that, all the way up into our 60s. We've got some people in our 70s. And what do I see from this is we are an incredibly experienced group. We have stories to tell, and we really have things that we need to share with this group that is not among us right now. I really want to encourage us to take our stories and share them with a younger group. And I've got to figure out a way to make the Napkin Academy more appealing to a younger demographic as well, because those are going to be our future readers and our future writers. And we're a very educated group. Look at this, 60% of us have a graduate degree. That's pretty remarkable. In terms of career, it's an even split. About 37% of us are a salaried professional, and just about exactly the same number are an entrepreneur or a business owner. And a lot of us are contract professionals. So we are professionals, we have experience, and we see the value in writing a book. And the last question was, would it be valuable to do a webinar? Happily, most of you said yes, which is why you're here now. I want to take a couple of minutes and talk about my new book now. This isn't to share details of the book I'm going to write, but it's to share with you that I'm working on a new one. And I think this is the inspiring part for all of us. When I started this call out by saying, it's time to step up and be the thought leader that you already are. You know where the best stories come from? You know where the best message you have to share to be the thought leader you are comes from? It comes from what you've already done and already loved in your life. The other day, I gave a talk to the people at Lego, and I was delighted to share that Lego is something I played with as a kid. And what I remember as a little kid was playing with my Lego blocks and building spaceships and dreaming of being an astronaut. Well, here's an interesting thing. Over the last 12 years, I've had an opportunity to work with a handful of astronauts. Believe it or not, I've gotten to know some, and it's a miracle. And when I talk to the astronauts, the story they share with me is they're floating in space now, working on the International Space Station, doing their spacewalks, doing their construction. And you know what's in their mind? Memories of when they were little, working with Lego and dreaming of being an astronaut. What an incredible loop this becomes. The very things that become the basis of what we want to share later that give us the greatest amount of passion are the things that have always been a part of our life. And that's where your thought leadership is going to come from. So with that in mind, I decided to work on a new book. A little bit of a story about me. I shared with you a little bit already about how I chose to draw. I've always drawn and I've always built model airplanes. I grew up in a family of pilots and I've always loved airplanes. And it has been the act of drawing and building models that has led me into this idea of understanding how to explain complex things. Most of my stories, or many of my stories, come from this world, believe it or not, of aviation, which is a very niche world. I totally get that. But I know the power of some of these stories. So what I decided is I'm going to work on a new book. And my working title is this: How We Soar. 13 secrets aviation teaches about making impossible dreams come true. The book that I've decided to work on combines the passions that I had when I was little with the passions that I have now in the business world. And I'm writing a book about the incredible secrets of aviation and the magic of flight for an audience that doesn't care anything about aviation. I've decided to tell the stories of the 13 biggest secrets that enabled humanity to achieve this miraculous dream of flight in one human lifetime. How did we do that? Well, it's not magic. It's not divine inspiration. It's not destiny. It's because people figured out how to do it. And once the word got out that it could work, it was an amazing catalytic moment that transformed the world in a similar way to what we might be seeing with AI beginning to transform the world now. There are a lot of parallels with what's going on in AI, what we're afraid of and what we love about it, what we don't yet know about it, and how we're going to have to regulate it. That looks a lot like what happened with aviation 100 years ago, that completely transformed the world in a way that could not have been understood at the beginning of the curve, but now we know it. And that's the story I seek to share. What this book is really about is it's a roadmap of 13 lessons that are all drawn from these unknown stories of the world of how humanity achieved flight. And these stories go in order, and they are secrets that help us understand how to make the most impossible dreams come true. No matter what your dream is, there are lessons there on how to make it come true. My new book, let's talk about yours. The most fun book to talk about, the most fun book in the world is not mine, but it is in fact your book. So let's talk for a moment. This is all of us, and every one of you's got a book in you. It's your turn. I've written, I've talked about mine. It's time for you to work on your book, and so let's do it together. Over the coming year on Napkin Academy, and this is what I want to share, I have put together a lesson plan during which I, over the next 12 months, will be writing my book, the one I just shared with you, chapter by chapter. Here is the entire year-long agenda of what we're going to do. Each month, we will get together and I will present the chapter that I've written along with structural items, the table of contents, my publishing plan, introductions to my agent. At each month as we go through, not only will I be sharing with you the new chapter that I've written, but one of the elements that came up in our earlier survey about how to write a book. So we'll talk about publishing options and finding an agent versus self-publishing. We'll do that in our July session. We'll talk about planning your writing calendar and how to keep the words coming even when things get tough. We'll do that in our August session. We'll talk about how to find the time and the space and keep driving. We'll find how to create your book map, your table of contents, and the overall structure. We'll talk about how to see the invisible in your own thinking and what's emerging in your writing. We'll talk about how to keep things simple. We'll talk about how to edit, how to find a publisher. We'll talk about how to identify in your writing what isn't there yet and needs to be. We'll find the team that you need. We'll talk about how to stay true to your vision. And then as we reach the end of the year, and I've done this twice before with Napkin Academy Associates, we will be sharing our books throughout the entire session. So the most important point about this is building our accountability tribe. In other words, some of the topics that we're going to talk about over the coming year, once a month, will be finding your title, self-publishing or traditional, what does an agent really do, how can you keep going, we are your accountability tribe, who are you actually writing for, and what is your writing voice, finding your writing partner, and there's a hint, it's not who you think it is, and maybe the thing that you're working on partway through turns out not to be a book, but some other piece of thought leadership, how to build an enjoyable table of contents, how to set your writing calendar, and the entire writing journey, which then transforms into, once your book is well underway, your promotional journey. You know, you might as well jump. And here's the way I think we're going to do it. So how could you get started? I want to talk about this. There are two ways to join me over the coming year. Our most popular option on Napkin Academy is what we call Napkin Unlimited subscription. If you were to go to napkinacademy.com, here's how you can join us. Altogether, the Napkin Unlimited subscription is almost $1,000 value because it includes every course that I have ever taught on Napkin Academy, as well as that of other visual leaders, including Debbie, who's on the call right with us right now. So it's a subscription that you pay $39 a month. However, if you want to join our tribe for the coming any amount of time, which you can cancel at any time, if you were to sign up for the Napkin Unlimited subscription, go to napkinacademy.com. This is exactly what the page looks like. If you were to sign up today, we will automatically refund you $20 off. So you'll make your first monthly payment of $39. We will automatically refund you $20. So you're getting $19 for the first month, and you can join us next month and decide then if you want to continue or not. So that's the easiest, most popular way. If you want to just join season 5, where we spend the next 12 months writing my book while you write yours, that's the Draw with Dan season 5, which is normally $149 discounted. But there is a coupon code. If you sign up today using the coupon code of season 5, we are going to drop off another $50. So you'll be paying $99 for the entire 1 year long course. So that's how we can do it, and I encourage you to sign up today. If you sign up for Napkin Academy Unlimited, you're going to join me every month, and you'll have access to everything. If you sign up for Draw with Dan Season 5, I'll see you every month as we go through the agenda we just saw. For those of you who choose to join, I'll see you next Tuesday, June 20th, and there's a piece of homework right off the bat. And it's not really about your book. It's really about where your book may go, because what I'd like you to do, the one piece of homework, and this is how we're going to kick off the lesson next week, is think of a book that you'd like to read that you haven't yet found. Remember in the poll that we took earlier, it said we've always found value from the book that someone else has written. Imagine a book that someone else would have written that you haven't found yet. What might that book be that you want to read? And listen, I thank you again for your time today. I hope that you found this useful. There's a survey that's going to come out to you at the end of this as soon as I wrap up the webinar. It's just a 2 or 3 question survey. I'd love it if you'd take a look. More than anything else, I'd love it if you go ahead and sign up for Napkin Unlimited. You'll get with that $20 discount right off the top, or sign up to join me for Draw with Dan Season 5. And I hope very much to see you next Tuesday. It's going to be quite a year, and you will write your book. Thanks all so much. I will hope to see you again very soon. And if not, I thank you for your time.
Hey,
it's
Dan.
my pleasure to share this with you. Yes.
Before you drop off, we have a question from Dennis. He says he's written course materials and presented them, and he wanted to know if there's any connection to writing a book.
Oh, fantastic. And look, I know that we're past time a little bit, so if you're still staying with us, and it looks like most all of you are, thank you. Dennis, what an incredible question. So you have written course materials and presented them. Yes, in fact, Dennis, one of the things that we're going to talk about, I believe in session 2, is how to put together the fundamental structure for your book and your table of contents. And get this, if you've already put together a lesson plan for any topic whatsoever, that lesson plan can very easily be repurposed to become the core content and table of contents of your book. And Dennis, I'd be very curious to know, what is this course material that you have already worked up? Do you want to pop that into the Q&A for us or into chat? I'd love to know. Now we've got chats coming on. Okay. Oh, okay. Some questions. I'm going to run through these chats right now. How can there be more than 100? I'm not sure. Susan, last question, choose more than one. Oh, because you can choose more than one response. The poll, questions about the poll in terms of chat. Yes, I think, Claudia, you ask a really, really thoughtful question. Each time when we do our monthly lesson, we do them as a webinar, but I always open up the microphone. There's always homework, and they always become a discussion where we share each other's work. Typically, the way an hour session each month goes is I will spend the first 30 minutes or so sharing with you the chapter that I've written and some of the tools that I've used to do it. Then we'll talk about, for probably 10, 15 minutes, some of the other lessons there are, how to publish, what are the options, what is an agent, how to set a table of contents, and all of those things will be woven together as we go. And then for the 10, 15 minutes, we open it up for discussion and sharing of homework. And I can tell you, even though the sessions are scheduled for an hour, they almost always go long and nobody ever rolls off, because there's always something that's interesting in those sessions, because we do keep them open. They're not just lectures, they're always turned into discussions. Okay, and Dennis, talking about Unix and Linux. My gosh, how many books can be written about Unix and Linux? Yours is going to be a good one. Of course, that becomes perfect content for writing a book. And next time when we kick off on June 20th, I'll share with you some of the books that other people have written during Napkin Academy, and you'll see that they come across a wide variety of subjects. We've even had people who've done novels, which is fascinating too. If you count courses, I've created a few. Excellent. This is fantastic. All right. Well, I thank you all for staying with us a little bit longer. I'm happy to stay online if anybody else has any further questions or comments. Otherwise, I thank you all again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at Napkin Academy or otherwise online.
Dan, there are a couple of more questions.
Let's do it.
So Robert wanted to know if there's a specific URL for the $19 first month offer. No, that's just the normal napkinacademy.com.
Okay, I'll go back to the screenshot for that one.
Okay.
And so that was Robert, is that right?
That was Robert.
Yeah. So Robert, what you're going to do is you're going to just go to napkinacademy.com, and the first thing you're going to see at the top of the page is what you see on my screen right now. And it's going to say $39. You're going to go ahead and do the subscription and pay, and we will refund you the $20 almost instantly. As soon as we see the payment come through, we'll refund back the $20.
And Kate was asking if there's a set time for the live webinars.
Yes, Kate, fantastic question. Every webinar takes place at 10. They're always on a Tuesday, and they always take place at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is, of course, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And again, every webinar is scheduled for 1 hour, and you will get all the content within an hour, but they invariably go long because there's always something interesting to talk about that we couldn't have anticipated. But yes, excellent question, Kate. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, one Tuesday a month.
And Chris was asking if the unlimited also includes Draw with Dan Season 5.
It does. In fact, Chris, thank you. Draw with Dan Unlimited includes everything. So that includes the entire year ahead of us, as well as the last 4 seasons, which are all recorded. And Chris, I'm glad you brought that up. Every one of our lessons is recorded, and that lesson becomes available to people who are subscribers to either Draw with Dan or Napkin Unlimited, typically within 24 hours. So all the lessons are recorded in full. The homework is available on handouts, and it's all available once you've subscribed on napkinacademy.com. And you can come back and rewatch any one of the lessons as many times as you want for no additional payment. They're part of the subscription.
And someone asked if the recording of this would be available.
Yes, the recording of this session will be available. We're going to put it on the Napkin Academy YouTube channel. And if you go to YouTube and you look up Napkin Academy, you will find the channel. I should have put the URL in here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send out a follow-up email to everybody who's on the call right now with the URL that gives you the recording of this session as well as some of these details. Debbie, anything else?
There's just one more. Susan had a suggestion about perhaps having members of the Napkin Academy be able to communicate and support each other. We can look into that.
Yeah. And is that our Susan who's been with us before?
Susan Schlief, been here forever.
Hi, Susan. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There are ways we can set it up so that we can communicate whether you want to or if you'd prefer not to, we can make that option available as well.
I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you everybody for your time. I very much look forward to seeing you next Tuesday or otherwise online. This is Dan signing out from the Napkin Academy. I wish you all the best and I can't wait to see the books that you write. Take care.